Hello everyone and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Bold and the Beautiful BNB spoilers for Tuesday, August 11th, reveal that Brooke Logan Forrester, Catherine Kelly Lang, will receive some devastating news, while Sheila Carter, Kimberlyn Brown, makes a promise to John Finn Finnegan, Tanner Novlin, about Steffi Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline McInnes Wood. For starters, Brooke will hear from Fanny Grayson, LCS Nolt, in Tuesday's BNB episode, which will be a shattering blow. Fanny will reveal information that will catch Brooke off guard and most likely cause more friction between Brooke and Katie Logan Spencer, Heather Tom. Fanny wanted to cooperate with Hope for the future on a new fragrance, but she was turned down because the brand was on hold at the moment. That brought Fanny to Logan, where she signed a new contract and will presumably collaborate with Hope Logan Spencer, Annika Noel, on her new scent. Brooke may lash out if she learns all the circumstances and believes Katie is taking advantage of the situation. Fanny wasn't a Forrester employee, but Brooke may see this as another instance of Katie seizing someone affiliated with Forrester for her own fashion house's benefit. Although Brooke will be in a terrible attitude when Fanny arrives, Ridge Forrester, Torsten K., will try to persuade her to experience the magic of Monaco. It's pointless to worry about this when Ridge and Brooke might be enjoying some alone time. Finn and Sheila will continue to quarrel on the plane. Despite Sheila's refusal to give up on a future with her family, Finn will eventually convince her to avoid Steffi in Monaco. Of course, Sheila will be unable to honor her pledge. Sheila has a flair for making issues and wreaking havoc. Thus Finn's plan to avoid disaster will fail. Steffi and Sheila will still collide for some serious drama in the upcoming episodes, so don't miss out on the pandemonium. According to spoilers from The Bold and the Beautiful, Sheila's intention to hijack Finn and Steffi's trip will result in some major surprises. The gentle Mediterranean light poured through the private jet's large windows as it pierced through the clouds far above the Atlantic, transporting Finn Finnegan to Monaco and the lady he loved. Steffi had previously agreed to meet with Ridge and Brooke for the Forrester Creations meetings, which would help the company expand internationally. Finn had just stayed behind to address a final medical matter, pledging to meet her at the cathedral, where he had previously returned from the dead and rewrote their future. He had envisioned calm days of reconnecting, stolen kisses overlooking the water, and the opportunity to re-establish the intimacy that life in Los Angeles had so frequently disrupted. What he hadn't expected was the woman seated 3 rows behind him. Her black eyes fixated on the back of his head with a mix of hope and caution. Sheila Carter had boarded the plane under a different identity. Her presence a closely guarded secret until the cabin door closed and the engines fired up. Finn noticed her only after the aircraft reached cruising altitude. The moment their eyes met, the air between them thickened with years of bloodshed, betrayal, and the frail thread of linked DNA. Sheila rose and took the empty seat beside him before he could register the shock. "I had to come," she whispered softly and urgently. "You and Steffi are commemorating something sacred. I want to be near that. I want to be close to you." Finn's jaw tightened. Every instinct prompted him to demand that the pilot turn the plane around, but the practical reality of a mid-air encounter left him with little options. He leaned in closer, keeping his tone quiet so no other passengers could overhear. "You can't be near her. Not today. Not this week. Steffi has made her boundaries plain, and I will not allow you to breach them again. If you turn up unexpectedly in Monaco, all we've built will crumble. I am imploring you to stay away from her. Take another flight home as soon as we land. I'll cover the costs. In exchange, I will not tell Steffi you were ever on this plane." Sheila's visage alternated between defiance and anything resembling actual pain. She had spent so many years seeking belonging that the prospect of willingly withdrawing felt like self-erasure. However, Finn's eyes bore a warning she understood from the several times the Forresters had closed ranks against her. Slowly she nodded. "I promise," she muttered. "I won't approach Steffi. I shall remain out of sight. I merely wanted to be close enough to feel their delight, even if I couldn't share it. I'll honor my word, Finn. For you." The promise hung in the pressurized compartment like a fragile truce. Finn hoped to believe it. He had to believe it. The alternative was a clash on foreign land, which may derail the carefully planned reunion waiting for him on the cathedral steps. He spent the rest of the journey in nervous silence, rehearsing every potential situation in which Sheila would violate her word, while she sat silently beside him, already calculating how long she could keep the deal before the pull of family became too powerful to resist. Brooke Logan sat at a little writing desk with a phone to her ear in a sunlit room overlooking the Monte Carlo Bay, half a globe away. The vista outside the glass doors was postcard perfect. Yachts bobbing on azure sea, white skyscrapers soaring up the hillside, and the distant glitter of the casino sector. Ridge had left to receive a call from an overseas buyer, while Steffi had gone to the cathedral to wait for Finn. Brooke had been left alone with the silence and the lingering hope that this vacation would finally allow her and Ridge the distance they needed to reclaim their relationship. The call from Fanny changed everything. Fanny's voice was cautious, almost apologetic, as she delivered the news that had flown from Los Angeles to the Côte d'Azur in a single hurried exchange. Brooke listened without interrupting, her free hand grasping the desk edge until her knuckles turned white. When the call finished, she carefully placed the phone down and glanced at the empty area in front of her. The crushing weight of the revelation fell upon her like a physical force. Details she never wanted to hear again had returned in a way that jeopardized the delicate calm she had been attempting to establish. Old secrets, fresh implications, and the realization that someone she trusted had concealed something critical left her breathless. She slowly stood and moved to the balcony doors, pushing them open to let the sea air brush her face. The air carried the aroma of sea and faraway perfume, but it did not relieve the constriction in her chest. Brooke had endured decades of heartbreak, public scandals, and intimate betrayals, but this blow felt different, more personal, more final. It forced her to confront the idea that the base she was standing on was less firm than she had thought. Tears gathered but did not fall. She'd learned long ago that crying didn't help when it came to deciding how to proceed. Ridge went to the suite shortly later and discovered her standing at the railing, her back tense. He recognized that position. He had witnessed it after each significant breach in their shared history. Without saying anything, he crossed the room and placed his hand on her shoulder. Brooke turned toward him, allowing herself a little moment to lean against the solid wall of his chest before straightening and meeting his gaze. "I need to tell you something," she said. "And I need you to hear it without trying to fix it right away." They sat on the balcony as Brooke recounted Fanny's message. Ridge listened with the intense intensity that had always defined him when his loved ones were in suffering. He didn't interrupt. He didn't provide easy reassurances. When she was finished, he took both of her hands in his and simply held them, anchoring her in the present while the past threatened to draw her under. The chat that followed was calm, honest, and infused with the tangled love that had held them together for so many years. Ridge spoke of second chances and the strength he had always admired in her. Brooke expressed her anxiety that history was repeating itself in ways she couldn't control. They had not reached a complete conclusion by the time the sun began to set over the western horizon, but they had reached each other. Meanwhile, in the cathedral plaza below, Steffi Forrester waited with a carefully created sense of expectation. She had chosen a simple dress the color of the sea, her hair loose over her shoulders, just as it had been the day Finn appeared before her following the shooting that nearly killed both of them. She wanted the reenactment to feel genuine, like a conscious reclamation of the miracle that had brought them back together. Tourists strolled by, cameras clicking, but Steffi scarcely noticed them. Her gaze remained riveted on the stone steps and the arched doorway, waiting for Finn to emerge. She was unaware that her husband was already in Monaco, finalizing the last details of Sheila's anticipated absence. Finn had insisted on a cab journey that avoided the main tourist routes, dropping Sheila off at a secluded motel away from the cathedral and the Forrester suite. He had obtained one final verbal confirmation of her pledge before abandoning her with instructions to remain inconspicuous. Sheila had watched him walk away, her expression unreadable, the weight of the vow hanging over her like a heavy blanket. She'd given her word. Whether she could hold it for the entire voyage was an outstanding question. One only time would tell. Back in the suite, Brooke and Ridge had a peaceful meal delivered to the balcony. The talk drifted away from the devastating news and into the practicalities of the next business meetings. Ridge discussed a prospective alliance that may broaden Forrester's reach across Europe. Brooke listened, adding strategic insights even as part of her mind was preoccupied by the ramifications of Fanny's call. The ability to compartmentalize had always been one of her survival talents, but tonight the compartments were thinner than usual. Ridge noted the distant look in her eyes and gently moved the conversation to happier topics. Old design sketches, late nights at the Forrester offices, and how she had once laughed at his intransigence. The shared history provided a temporary shelter against the current uncertainty. Finn arrived at the cathedral just as the final light had vanished from the sky. Steffi noticed him the instant he walked into the square. For a heartbeat, the years vanished, and she was once again the lady who had thought he was dead, only to see him standing before her like a resurrection. She raced the short distance and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face against his shoulder. Finn hugged her closely, inhaling in the familiar aroma of her perfume. Happy that the truth about Sheila's presence remained hidden behind the promise he had extracted on the plane. They stood together on the steps for a long time, talking little but allowing the emotion of the reunion to speak for itself. When they eventually parted, Steffi's eyes were filled with unshed emotions of relief and excitement. "I was starting to think something had gone wrong," she replied. "Nothing went wrong," Finn replied, the lie feeling bitter as he uttered it. "I am here. That's all that matters." They walked arm in arm through the narrow streets to the hotel where Ridge and Brooke were staying, anticipating a late dinner and the opportunity to exchange notes on the day's meetings. Finn kept the talk light, emphasizing the beauty of the city and the significance of the Forrester negotiations. He made no mention of the woman sitting alone in a separate hotel room, staring out at the same harbor lights and struggling with the vow she'd made. Sheila had ordered room service, which she hardly touched. She paced the small balcony, repeating Finn's words, comparing the cost of obedience against the desire for connection that had propelled her across an ocean. The promise felt heavier with each passing hour. Ridge, Brooke, Steffi, and Finn ultimately gathered in the Forrester suite, around a table prepared with local wine and basic Mediterranean cuisine. The conversation moved from business to personal updates. Steffi described the productive meetings from earlier in the day. Ridge described the next phases in the European growth. Brooke shared insights gained from years of experience, yet her voice had a subtle strain that only Ridge recognized. Finn remained alert, his palm resting on Steffi's beneath the table, while the knowledge of Sheila's presence pressed at the back of his mind like a persistent quiet warning. Following supper, the couples separated. Steffi and Finn retreated to their own suite to continue their secret celebration. Ridge remained with Brooke on the balcony as the night progressed. The shattering news from Fanny lingered between them, unresolved and demanding action. Brooke leaned on the railing again, this time viewing the port lights. "I don't know how to carry this yet," she said. Ridge moved beside her. "You do not have to carry it alone. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. That is not a promise I make lightly." She looked at him, searching for the assurance she needed. In the warm glimmer of the outdoor lamps, she saw the same man who had rescued her from the black water several times, the same man who had fought for her even when the odds appeared impossible. The blow she had taken that afternoon remained real and devastating, but Ridge's presence alongside her provided a counterweight she had nearly forgotten how to trust in. They stood in quiet for a long time, the sound of distant waves filling in the gaps where words were not yet ready. Sheila eventually stopped pacing far below, in her separate motel. She sat on the side of the bed, staring at the blank screen on her phone. The vow she had made Finn resurfaced in her mind with growing force. She had pledged to avoid Steffi. She had pledged to be invisible. The part of her that still wished for acceptance argued that honoring the commitment was the only way to eventually lead to something better. The darker side of her, the one that had always refused to be rejected, murmured that commitments made under duress were never meant to be kept. For tonight she selected the former. She turned out the lights, lay down fully dressed, and forced herself to close her eyes, repeating the pledge like a chant until exhaustion overtook her. The night settled over Monaco with an equal amount of romance and unresolved tension. In one suite, a husband and wife recaptured a moment of pure connection, oblivious of the threat that had pursued them across the ocean. In another, a man and a woman confronted the latest split in a lifetime of troubled love, choosing to lean into each other rather than allow the crushing weight of fresh facts to drive them apart. And in a third, a woman who had spent years rewriting the norms of belonging was forced to keep a vow that seemed like both a prison and a possible key. The coming days would put all of those delicate plans to the test. For the time being, under the same Mediterranean sky, each of them stood by the decisions they had taken on this single important Tuesday. The private jet soared into the morning sky above the Mediterranean, the cabin silent save for the low hum of the engines and the occasional clink of ice in a glass. Finn sat across from Sheila, his face tense, the weight of what he was going to ask crushing against his chest. Outside the window, the sea sparkled like scattered diamonds, but within, the air was heavy with all left unsaid between mother and son. Sheila had boarded without an invitation. She had located the flight information on an open laptop back in Los Angeles and arrived at the gate with a little carry-on and her typical determined smile. Finn had nearly turned her away. Almost. But the part of him that recalled the woman who had once held him as a newborn and said she merely wanted a second chance had allowed her to sit down. They were now airborne, and the time had come to face the consequences. "I need you to stay away from Steffi," he replied quietly and steadily. "When we land, you'll take another flight home. You do not look for her. You do not approach her. You don't even tell her you're in the same nation." Sheila's eyes flared before softening into something almost pained. "Finn, I came all this way because I love you. Because I want to be involved in your life. Steffi doesn't need to like me. She only needs to see that I'm trying." "She doesn't have to see anything," Finn replied. "She has already made it obvious. When you come close, something breaks. I can't keep putting her through this. I will not. If you truly care about me, you will do this one thing. Stay away. I will keep the fact that you were on this plane between us. She never needs to know you followed us." Sheila stared at him for a long time. The cabin lights shone in her eyes, and the calculating sparkle was gone. In its stead was something more akin to genuine fear. Fear of losing the only link she still had. She took a slow breath and nodded once. "All right," she replied gently. "I will remain away. Promise." Finn scanned her face, half expecting to see a falsehood. He found only resignation. "Thank you," he responded. The words cost him something. He didn't fully trust the promise, but he needed to believe it enough to go through the next few days. Steffi waited for him in Monaco. Their anniversary was tomorrow. The chapel where he had once returned to her life after everyone assumed he was dead awaited them once more. He wouldn't let Sheila ruin it. While Finn negotiated the fragile peace high above the sea, Brooke Logan sat in a sunlit conference room at a fancy hotel overlooking the port. Ridge and Steffi had left to conduct a call with the European purchasers. The morning meetings went well. Forrester Creations was expanding its reach, and the international partners appeared enthusiastic. Brooke had smiled throughout the presentation, her professional mask firmly in place. The mask came off only after the room was empty. Her phone buzzed on the pristine tabletop. Fanny's name illuminated the screen. Brooke responded with a casual greeting, anticipating an update on a small design detail or a delivery issue. Instead, Fanny's voice sounded strained and guarded. "Brooke, I need to tell you something. It's about hope." The globe shrank. Brooke up and stepped to the large window, pressing one hand against the cool glass. Outside, boats bobbed in the port and tourists sauntered down the promenade, utterly ignorant that a woman's heart was about to burst.